The Outer County Board of Commissioners meeting will now come to order. I want to call on Mr. Johnson for invocation.
Let's pray, please. Heavenly Father, we again come before you, and we ask that you'd be with us in our proceedings this evening, that you would impart your wisdom to us, that we would heed your word and not lean into our own understanding, but to look to you for guidance. We ask your blessing on each one here. I pray that we will make wise decisions. I pray that they will glorify you and they will be of benefit to the folks of this county. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Let us stand for our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now call on Mr. Mashman for adjustments to the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I do have a couple of adjustments to make under appointments before the board. Item B is to be deleted. Item B is to be deleted. And then under administrative matters, would like to add item L, call for a public hearing on September the 2nd of 08 at 7 p.m. regarding an economic incentive for an undisclosed company that may locate in Iredell County pending approval of local and state incentives. And that'll be on September the 2nd at 7 p.m. Under closed session, would like to add for economic development 143-318.11A4, economic development. Mr. Chair, those are the adjustments that I have to the agenda.
Thanks, sir. Are there any addition or corrections to the agenda? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Tice. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, likewise. On a special recognition and awards, I would like to recognize Troop 171, Williamson Chapel Methodist Church, if you stand. We have Hunter Back, Zach Salser, Cal Scruggs, who's attending tonight, and troop leaders Kevin Scruggs. Thank you for coming tonight. At this time, I'll call on Mr. Williams, who will read a special plaque.
This is a resolution from the Iredell County Board of Commissioners recognizing the 220th anniversary of the County of Iredell. Whereas in 1788, the North Carolina General Assembly created an act to divide the county of Rowan, and whereas in 1788, the North Carolina General Assembly adopted legislation for the creation of Iredell County, and whereas Iredell County was named after James Iredell, a prominent attorney who was later appointed to the United States Supreme Court by George Washington. And whereas by July the 5th, 1789, boundary lines had been established to formally separate Iredell County from Rowan. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Iredell County Board of Commissioners recognizes 2008 as being the 220th anniversary year of the creation of the county of Iredell County. And be it therefore resolved that Iredell County Board of Commissioners encourages citizens of Iredell County to acknowledge this historic milestone. And be it finally resolved that Iredell County Board of Commissioners extends best wishes, good health, and prosperity to all county citizens in connection with this proud and significant occasion, and commends all persons who have helped to make Iredell County such an inviting place to live and work. This 19th day of August 2008, Iredell County Board of Commissioners, Marvin Norman, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any further comments? Okay, thank you, sir. At this time, appointments for the board. Mrs. Swann, please.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing well tonight. It's good to see you, and it's good to be here to present to you the annual information that comes from Crossroads Behavioral Health Care from the last year. It's part of the requirements of the North Carolina General Assembly to report face-to-face at least twice a year to each Board of County Commissioners. I have provided some materials that I believe the clerk has distributed to you, and I'm just going to scan and highlight some of these things, and then if the chairman pleases, I'll take questions, of course. The Iredell County Appropriation there, I've given you a 5-year running history of the appropriations from Iredell County. We do that based on population, and you'll see that we have asked for and you have provided for the last 3 years $3.60 per capita. That has been increased each year by the population, but not by the per capita. You see our combined total population, and you'll see also the number of people served towards the middle of the page, 45% of the total of 5,566 persons served, and that does not include Medicaid. If you add Medicaid into it, you'll nearly double that total population. We just don't collect the data anymore since Medicaid was taken out of the local management entities' hands and placed in a single statewide vendor back in 2006. You'll see our annual budget there as you scale down the page, $31,660,787. That's an increase of nearly $5 million from last year. That increase is largely due to a Medicaid pass-throughs, where that Medicaid money comes to us when providers provide a Medicaid service, and then we bill for them, and then we pay the provider back, so we're pass-through. And, of course, a large portion of that money goes to services that we support. I'll scan those starting at the bottom of the page. The Access toll-free crisis line that people access all their behavioral health care for in Iredell, Surrey, and the Yadkin counties. That number, 1-888-235-HOPE, of course, is what really provides, the gatekeeping and the doorway to all the mental health services. Then we have mobile crisis services. We have residential services for adults and children, the clinical services that mostly we're known for, and the substance abuse services, those day and vocational services. And I was talking with Mr. Williams earlier. He's been to several of these day programs recently where we do supported employment and education and enrichment for people with disabilities. And supportive services like services to the deaf and hard of hearing, language interpreting, things like that. And then the Community Alternatives Program, or the CAP program, which is also for persons with developmental disabilities. And, of course, a big portion of our funds go to crisis services, and I'm going to speak to that in just a minute, crisis and intensive services. And housing has been increased quite a bit in the last 3 to 4 years for us. We're doing more housing than we've ever done in the past, and it's helping to stabilize people in their recovery plan. I'll speak just briefly, too. There were 52 items of legislation that were enacted from the North Carolina General Assembly short session this year. I've got 4 on your list. As I promise you all the time, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of this. The first one is an expansion of crisis services and community hospital inpatient beds. These will be new funds that will come to this area to help to do that. We're working on expanding mobile crisis teams, developing walk-in capability for crisis services, and also to purchase local hospital beds. We also will note that there was some new legislation that brings the utilization management of Medicaid back to local management entities. What I mentioned earlier about those numbers, that the Medicaid management was taken away from us in early 2006. So it was put in a statewide single vendor called Value Options. And the legislation forces the Department of Health and Human Services to return that to local management entities next summer. Also, the Department of Health and Human Services now has a few less hurdles to jump over if a local management entity is not performing as they're supposed to. and that was another significant piece of legislation. It effectively reduced the corrective action plan time frame from 9 months to 6 months. And also something that we've talked about for many years now about mergers of local management entities. There was a piece of legislation that was enacted in a special provision, actually, that now puts a moratorium on either forced or incentivized mergers by the department. It prohibits that. It doesn't prohibit voluntary mergers or relationships across counties or local management entities at their own free will, but it does prohibit either the state from offering an incentive to do that or for levying a penalty for not doing that. The finance summary is next. I'm on page 3, but I'm going to ask you to turn to the third page from the last in your handout, and you will see the June 30th unaudited financial summary for us. I'll just point out a couple things. You see that we did spend slightly more than we had taken in this past year. So our budget was, we actually went into fund balance $593,765. This was a planned and calculated event. We actually pulled money out of fund reserves last year to do startups for providers, and also we pulled out resources to do some extra housing. So those were 2 planned events that cost us about that amount of money. The next part, back on page 3, you'll see is a number of service events and visits that were provided here in Iredell County. You'll see the total of 46,673, and you'll see that broken down by adults and children, and then also by clinical office visits, crisis visits, evaluations and screenings, rehabilitation services, and residential services. I think you know mostly the service locations that we have. Statesville Highway 21, the Twin Oaks Psychosocial Rehab Program, again, one that Mr. Williams has been to recently, the Statesville Crisis and Recovery Center, the Mooresville East Center Avenue Comprehensive Center down in the old hospital, and of course we have other contracts with providers that are dotted all throughout Iredell County. Next thing I want to mention is crisis and emergency services, and I'll ask you to turn to the colored slide 2 pages from the rear. So go to the back and go up one. You'll see what I call a dashboard. It has 6 slides on it with pie charts. I'm just going to point out a couple of things that are significant here for Iredell County. Since we are limited on our time, I'll be very brief on this. Notice that the referral on the left-hand side in the middle of the page, the referrals to mobile crisis, 391. I'm just going to point out that many of those mobile crisis events were provided within the community. For example, in a nursing home, in a long-term care center, in a person's home, or in a family member's home. In the past, before we had such a service, those services would largely have been provided in a local hospital emergency room. Those services have been pulled out of an ED and making it more feasible for the emergency room to operate and do what they need to do, and these are better served this way. So a very significant thing. Look at the emergency department visits just below that. This is for the 3rd quarter of fiscal year 07-08, and we have the ability now to take out all of the emergency department visits from each of our 6 hospitals in the catchment area by county. You'll see 1,456 emergency room visits were provided in our 3 hospitals in Iredell County. When a patient comes in and identifies themselves or they're diagnosed with a mental health or a developmental disability or a substance abuse problem, then that's recorded, and that data is kept at UNC Chapel Hill, and that's where we get this from. So notice that this is less than Surry County. See the red part of the pie with 1,759 and then 1,456 being with Iredell? That's a significant contribution because of the crisis center that's down the road, we think. Because people are able to be moved over there. They can go there first before they ever go to a hospital emergency room. So a couple of key things on crisis services. Notice that the state hospital admissions are up on the right-hand side. We still have 230. All of those are transported by law enforcement. We are decreasing our bed days, excuse me, but for Iredell County, we still have 230 admissions. That doesn't mean those were inappropriate admissions. However, I do believe that some of those will still be better served locally. And as we are able to get local community hospital services for psychiatric patients on an involuntary basis, we will be able to serve more of those closer to home. You'll see also that Iredell County was the largest of our counties referring to the Facility-Based Crisis Center. That's the slide on the right-hand side in the middle of the page with 152 admissions. And then you'll see referrals to psychiatric hospitals down below. The referrals are actually a referral. The admissions up at the top are actual admissions. So many referrals are really not admitted. And in this case, from Iredell County, 32 of the referrals did not generate an admission. Next thing I'll mention is the last piece of paper on the back. I provided for you a July 1 up-to-date map of North Carolina with the local management entity constellation. We had a merger that took place at the end of June. Just to the west of us, the counties that used to be in the Foothills program merged with the Smoky Mountain program, and so now there are 24 local management entities. And then I'll mention the Communities Caring for Families Collaborative, which is on my list here too. That is a very strong product here in Iredell County, serving children with families, or children and their families. We have a community collaborative right here in Iredell County, and then we have a larger community collaborative that serves all 3 counties. And what happens from that is lots of services are generated from that. Lots of grants have also been generated from that, and I mentioned several of them. One by the Cape View Reynolds Charitable Trust we received this past year. We have just been notified on last Friday that we've been selected by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Cape View Reynolds Charitable Trust in a partnership activity called Reclaiming Futures. That is a targeted services towards children that are involved with juvenile services that happen to be substance abusing. And we also just submitted yesterday a grant to the Iredell Community Foundation, all under System of Care and all under the Communities Caring for Families Collaborative. Last but not least, the Mercer study that I mentioned to you probably the last time I was here, the study commissioned by the Department of Health and Human Services that did a separate independent audit and evaluation of all of the local management entities across North Carolina this past winter. The results came out, of course, in April about that, showing that Crossroads was the highest ranked program, equal to Mecklenburg. Mecklenburg and Crossroads, the highest ranked in the state of North Carolina. We were quite pleased with that and happy that we were recognized by an outside group like that, because in some ways we saw that as a way to try to identify the problems of local management entities, and so we were wondering how that would come out. But just another good validation for what we're doing here and how significant the work is. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have to present on that. I'll see if you want me to hang around for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Swann. Do we have any questions for Mr. Swann?
I've got a couple, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Swann, you say you drew down your fund balance last year. Do you have any plans to do that in the coming year?
Yes, our board has approved an expenditure plan, and I didn't bring it, so I can't quote it. But there are several $1 million that they've approved for this year to expend on new service startups.
Okay. At the end of these expenditures, what would you estimate your fund balance to be as a percentage of your budget?
Let's see. Wish I had it all with me. We have been keeping the actual fund balance has been staying at right below 15%. Okay? So, I would say it's probably going to run down into the 13% range maybe.
Yeah, that's still fairly healthy. What always concerns me when you make your report, and I appreciate you sharing us what's happened, is there any future legislation that we need to be concerned about?
Well, I don't anticipate any right now that would come into the long session that would be harmful or helpful to us. I think that what I can anticipate is refinement legislation, as has happened every time since 2001, that sort of tweaks this. But this past year, it's been all about strengthening local management entities and county programs. So the General Assembly has been very pro-county in the last couple of years, and so services and functions for us have been either strengthened or restored over those last couple of sessions, and I would predict that would occur again.
Okay, and one more, you talked about local beds as far as the state's going to give us more money to do that, and I've leaned on you pretty hard in the past about the amount of time we keep a deputy in a car tied up, and I've come to realize that a lot more of that's beyond your control than I realize. So as far as the part that's not in your authority, I apologize, but still it's a valid concern when you're paying the bills on this end.
That's right. I'm also deeply concerned about it.
This money, is that going to help alleviate that problem, you think?
You bet it will, if we can get the right services closer to home. So, excellent question. Right now, if the money was in my hand today, and it's going to be coming in the next 60 days, I don't have a hospital in any of the 3 counties that I serve in that will accept involuntary psychiatric hospital beds or psychiatric hospital patients. So I would have to go to Hickory, Charlotte, Gastonia, or Winston-Salem, or Greensboro as the closest hospitals, and Morganton. So what we hope to do, and we are working with all the hospitals in Iredell County, this is our target here in Iredell County, working with all the hospitals to collaborate on who would be the best hospital to provide these involuntary psych beds so that we could use those and buy those. The money will come to Crossroads. It will allow us to buy it on a per diem rate or buy the whole bed for a whole year. So I could say these 2 beds belong to Crossroads, and every patient that we can put in them, we're going to fill them. Or I could go to a multitude of hospitals and buy bed days and just only debit the account when we actually buy that bed day. See the difference in those 2 models? So there's both ways of doing it. But yes, that will keep people closer to home if we can get it local. But if I still have to go to Charlotte, I'm still having to send deputies on the road.
Well, I understand, but, you know, my concern all have been the whole time is sometime a deputy goes in at 7 o'clock in the morning, he gets a call, sits around waiting on you folks to, if it's in the middle of the night, he might sit there a while for you folks to get there, start the paperwork.
Yep.
It also takes 5 or 6 hours to find the bed, and this guy's 16, 20 hours in the road and back, and he's tuckered out, and we owe a lot of overtime.
Right, right.
Okay.
And it was also made a lot worse in the last 2 years because of Broughton Hospital and their downsizing process and the lack of community capacity to offset that loss.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
David, is it not true that we're mandated by the state to reduce our fund balance?
We are mandated by the state to keep our fund balance at or below 15% of our annual budget.
That's fine. I just want to make sure it was healthy. I mean, 13%, you need to keep around 15%. I understand that.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Swann.
Thank you very much for
Appreciate you
having me.
making that report.
All right.
At this time, we will go into a public hearing for consideration of changes to our animal control ordinance or revisions. I'll call on Mr. Tracy Jackson, if you'll come forward, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Commissioners. I'd like to make a brief statement concerning the topic of tonight's public hearing, which is a consideration of proposed revisions to the county's animal control ordinance. The proposed revisions of the Iredell County Animal Control Ordinance are the result of many hours of work by county staff, various members of the Humane Society of Iredell County, and representatives of sporting dog associations in the county also. Staff's goal during the revision process was to deliver a proposed ordinance that would be practical and enforceable. With this in mind, staff focused on developing an ordinance that will mesh with the animal control's mission and role in the community. Staff has received comments from many different people and groups with wide-ranging opinions. We believe we have incorporated standards and suggestions which balance the concerns about public safety with responsible pet ownership. We think the proposed ordinance sets standards that are realistic and based upon the capabilities and resources of the Iredell County Animal Services and Control Department. We also believe the new ordinance will form a suitable framework for animal control in Iredell County, which can grow and change as the county grows and changes. Chris Royal and I are available for questions at this time and during the course of the public hearing if needed. Thank you for considering this matter tonight.
Are there any questions for Mr. Jackson before he sits down? Anyone?
I want to thank these folks for their hard work. They've been back and forth on this thing for months, and congratulate them on the good judgment they demonstrated by talking to folks on from all aspects of the issue. I think they've done a good job, and I'll say that on
Okay.
as an intro into their presentation and question.
Okay. Any comments? Go ahead, Mr. Pope.
I should know the answer to this, but I don't. I've looked at this thing several times, but Section 320, civil penalty section, refers to fines that would be adopted by the county commissioners. When is that done?
There should be an attachment with the packets that went out. There'll be a separate proposed fee schedule that would change the current schedule. It would need to be updated to reflect the revisions in the ordinance. So that is attached to the proposed changes.
I didn't get that.
About the penalties, Martin. Very last page. Concerning the penalties.
Go ahead.
Is that the last page of our ordinance that we have, Tracy?
It was an attachment.
Criminal
It may or may not have been
penalties.
included. The section that Mr. Pope is talking about, do you have a page number on that, Mr. Pope? I believe it's page 22.
Is your page number on that?
Page 2, 1 and 2, what it shows in 3.
That wasn't in my package.
Okay. I guess you'll have to maybe clarify the question for me. There is a separate fee schedule that will need to be considered.
It was actually attached to that revision you gave us at the last meeting. It was the last page on that, I think, Mr. Jackson.
Right. And you may, at your discretion, want to consider that separately as a separate item, aside from the ordinance.
That was the intent, that the fee schedule be considered separately from the ordinance so that we didn't have to have an ordinance amendment every time the commissioners approved a change. But evidently, it was not included, Tracy, in the packet they have now. It may have been presented to them earlier, but it's not in the agenda packet.
Right.
But the hearing is not really addressing the fees as much as it is what's in the ordinance at this time.
Okay. Any further questions, Mr. Jackson? Let's sit down.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Folks, we're now in a public hearing. You have a right to come up and tell us who you are, when it comes to your name, and speak in regards to this document. You can speak in favor of it or against it, but that will take place at this time. And you have up to 5 minutes to speak. If anyone would like to come up, you may do it this time. Okay, if there's no one wishing to speak in regards, you want to speak, sir?
Gentlemen, my name is Jeff Lineberry. I'm a resident of Statesville and a member of the Iredell Landlords Association. We've had some situations over the past year where we've had property owners attacked by dangerous dogs, and we just want to make sure that this ordinance has enough teeth and that our animal control personnel have the authority to enforce it. I was called by this evening, a gentleman who was going to be here to speak had a family emergency and had to go over to the hospital. And he was here to represent his owner. He's a property repairman and maintenance man for a local realtor and landlord. And this past spring, they went to one of the properties, and they had 3 pit bulls running loose in the yard. And they asked them to put the dogs away, and so they put one dog away, and then one dog broke free, charged the 2 gentlemen, attacked this particular landlord, and he had received several lacerations of the face, neck, arms, chest, stomach. Went to the hospital and was told by the people there that they should not sew these up, that they would heal better being open since they were the dog bites. And he wanted just to, of course, he had no recourse except to get the dog picked up, which it was. It was held for 10 days, and then it was, he's not sure whether it was released or given away, but it was not destroyed. We have a lot of situations where we will rent a property to a tenant and tell them no pets. And unbeknownst to us, they will bring these primarily pit bulls, sometimes Rottweilers, large dogs, and will keep them chained a lot of times outdoors, and a lot of times they just leave them running free. You can ride around town and you'll see them running around free. Now, I'm not saying that the animal control doesn't pick them up, because I know that they do. I had one that they were trying to catch in one of our properties that we didn't know who it belonged to, but it was running in the neighborhood for 3 days and had attacked other animals and chased children. And the animal control officer finally pinned it up in one of our properties. And miraculously, as they were getting ready to take it off to the impound, the owner showed up and paid the fine and took the dog back in their possession. So I really think the problem is not so much the animal as it is the owners. And I don't know what can be done to rectify that situation, but something needs to be done to keep these dogs from, before someone is killed. I mean, it's happening in other cities. You see it on the news all the time, particularly in Charlotte, where you have a much denser population than we have here. So I don't think we want to see that happen here in Iredell County. There's a gentleman here. I won't speak for him, but I know he was attacked. I know that his legs were chewed up. A main artery was severed. He almost bled to death. It required 50-some stitches and several months of rehabilitation to get back to where he could walk normally. And this was simply a maintenance issue where he had his maintenance man. He stepped out the back door to check the clean out on the plumbing, and the dog attacked him. The people that live there said the dog doesn't belong to us. We were just keeping him for a friend. I don't really know the answer to this. I'm sure that this I read the ordinance quite thoroughly. It covers quite a bit of ground, and I think it's well thought out. I think it's got some very good definitions about dangerous dogs and potentially dangerous dogs and so forth. My biggest thing, of course, would be the enforcement of these and making sure we can keep these dogs. I'd like to see them eliminated personally, but we like to keep them where they are at least free to attack our local citizenry, our children, and our other animals. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in regards to this order? Okay, come on up, sir.
I'm Ken Grant. I'm with Homestead Properties. I am the other gentleman that he talked about that was attacked by a pit bull. I think the ordinance is written real well. It does explain in great detail about vicious dogs. But I think the one thing that maybe possibly needs to be looked at, if that dog attacks someone like it did attack me. And of course, I did get the last word on this. It was euthanized on the attack. He did go, went to jail, stayed 12 days, then he was euthanized. But there is a loophole there that will allow a case or a dog to, go to, what does she call it, where they have a board that would say whether or not the dog would be free to go. I don't think that should be possible. If that dog has attacked vicious enough to put someone in the hospital and the animal control picked that dog up, that dog should be destroyed. And with the way the laws are written right now, they would have a grievance committee that they could go before and possibly get the dog back and take it back to the street and do the same thing again. So, I just ask that you maybe look at that and tighten that just a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Anyone else wishing to speak? Sure.
I'd like to thank the Commission for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm having a little trouble with my voice, so I'm glad I got a microphone. But my name's Keith Loudermill. I'm a lifelong resident of Iredell County, and I'm president of the North Carolina Sporting Dog Association, and I'm vice president of the local Tar Heel Beagle Club. And I'm a beagle breeder. I've judged and competed in beagle field trial competitions at a national level for the past 20 years. Speaking on behalf of the North Carolina Sporting Dog Association, we just want to thank the county for the considerations you've shown our various associations during this process. We appreciate being included and heard in the process. We feel that the animal ordinance, as is proposed today, is a comprehensive, common sense, enforceable, and it does not advocate any individual agenda. I learned a lot, especially through the process, that Chris Royal and the folks in her department are dedicated, they're extremely capable, and they do a good job, and they serve this county very well. The ordinance, combined with existing state law, should give our Animal Control Office the tools necessary to ensure our public safety and public health of our citizens. We just wanted to stand up and say we have no opposition. We support the ordinance, and thank you for being included in the process. Share the concerns of these folks about the dangerous dogs. I do think, as you know, I was appointed to the Animal Grievance Committee last month, and I was an alternate, but I've actually got to hear five cases now, 3 different sessions. But anyway, it's a capable committee, and these cases, I think that they get heard well. And if these dogs are, this county has probably one of the strictest dangerous dog laws in the state. We've got a provision that requires a $500,000 liability policy that was actually defeated at the state level, but it's law in Iredell County. So it's I think it's a good ordinance, and we just want to thank you for being included, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor or against this ordinance? Okay. We have no one else wishing to speak. We will close this public hearing at this time and entertain a motion.
I have a question for Mr. Pope.
Okay.
Mr. Pope, Mr. Grant said something about this Animal Grievance Committee that he had a little problem with it going to the Animal Grievance Committee, that the dog should be euthanized. And I understand his feelings. And I don't mean to interpret law to a lawyer, but it's my understanding that animals are treated as property under North Carolina law. And I don't mean to sound like one of these folks that try to attribute some constitutional rights to animals. I think they're probably living on a different planet than I am. But nevertheless, because the animal is property of the owner, does that violate any due process for the owner of that animal if we were just to do away with that Animal Grievance Committee?
Yeah, the law is clear that animals are property, and people have property rights, and we have to provide due process. And what we've tried to do here is that I think these gentlemen raise a legitimate concern, but it's not really the ordinance, it's the application of the ordinance by the committee. And the consideration is, do you have the right committee? And you know, if you find out that they're not applying the ordinance as written, then the remedy would be to change the committee, I think, rather than change the ordinance. I don't have any reason to think they would not apply the ordinance. I think up to now they've been, and to my knowledge, extremely conscientious in handling the matters that have come before them.
Okay.
Did I answer the question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, Mr. Mashburn, as a procedural matter, we were going to consider for the sake of the staff, we were going to consider the body of the ordinance, take action on that, and subsequently we were going to approve some fee schedule. Is that right?
That's correct, and even though you would go ahead, and we would request that you go ahead and approve the ordinance tonight, since you don't have copies and you don't have them with you on the fee schedule, I would recommend that you delay effective date of the ordinance until the fee schedule is adopted. But I would request that you go ahead and adopt the ordinance tonight if you indeed are inclined to do so.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any further questions, comments? If not, again, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve this ordinance as it has been revised by the committee and presented to us.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, do you want to set a particular date that goes into effect?
Effective when the fee schedule is approved.
Yeah, when the fee schedule is approved, because, to be honest with you, in this final draft, this is the only thing I had some questions about was the fee schedule.
Okay.
Some of these fees I don't, by nature, I just don't think they're stiff enough, to be honest with you.
Why don't you make it October the 1st, and that'll give us 2 meetings.
Is that ample time for you, Mr. Jackson, to October 1st?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I would add that as a part of my motion then, Mr. Chairman. Take effect October the 1st after we subsequently approve the fee schedule.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding that motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Likewise. Okay, ayes have it. Okay, we'll now move to administrative matters. Mr. Mashburn.
Mr. Chair, the following items under administrative matters are for consent agenda. Item A is approve the request from Andy Peggs with Top Priorities, LLC, for a high-density option of property located on Doolie Road in Mooresville, North Carolina. Item B is approve the request from, I guess that's Dkota Investments Incorporated, to call for a public hearing on September the 2nd of 2008 at 7 p.m. regarding a release of zoning and subdivision jurisdiction for a 10-acre site located in Mooresville Boulevard and Penske Way in Mooresville, North Carolina. Item C is approval of budget amendment number 3 for the appropriation of $62,000 to the Union Grove Volunteer Fire Department for the installation of a water tank, and $9,800 to the Wayside Volunteer Fire Department in conjunction with the February 13, 2008 insurance inspection. Item D is approval of changes in the organizational structure in regards to the Assistant County Manager's position and the Deputy County Manager's position, along with a request for approval of budget amendment number 4 for the reallocation of the clerk to the board's position that is currently budgeted between 2 departments, 410 the county commissioners and 415 administration. all of that to go to 410 county commissioners. The effective date of that would be August the 28th of '08. Item E is approval of the July 2008 refunds and releases. Item F is approval for staff to issue the request for qualifications or IFQs for design work on the proposed animal control facility and to interview and select a design firm and advertise for bids. Item G is approve the request from the Sybil Barrett law firm for the refund of $950 due to a warranty deed being incorrectly recorded in Iredell County rather than Mecklenburg County. Item H is deny the request from the Graham Construction Company to be grandfathered under the building permit fee schedule that was enacted prior to July the 1st of 2008 in regards to the TownePlace Suites project in Mooresville. Item I is to approve the request from the Greater Statesville Development Corporation representing the Holland Family Limited Partnership for approval of a release of zoning and subdivision jurisdiction to the City of Statesville for 3 acres of land. Item J is to call for a public hearing on September the 2nd of 2008 at 7 p.m. regarding an application to the North Carolina Department of Commerce for a community development block grant for economic development. Item K is approval of the August 5th, 2008 minutes. And item L is to call for a public hearing on September the 2nd of 2008 at 7 p.m. regarding an economic incentive for an undisclosed company that may locate in Iredell County pending approval of all local and state incentives. Mr. Chair, those are the consent agenda items and the administrative items.
Thank you, Mr. Mooresvi. Are there additions or corrections? If not, entertain a motion.
Motion to approve is presented by the county manager, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, we're now moving to announcements. We've got one announcement for Lake Norman Marine Commission. Appointments to boards and commission, Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee, 5 appointments.
Move to table, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion to table. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Those opposed? Statesville Planning Board, ETJ, 1 appointment. Anyone for?
Motion to table, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to table. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed likewise. Nursing Home Advisory Committee for appointments.
Motion to table, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to table. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed likewise. Criminal Justice Partnership Program Committee, 1 appointment.
Motion table.
Motion to table, okay. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed. Recreation Advisory Board, 1 appointment.
Motion table on that.
Motion to table. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed.
Mr. Chairman, I noticed that we did have a person willing and eligible to serve on the Adult Care Home Committee.
Okay.
I didn't see that at the time we went by there.
You want to make the motion, Ms. Williams?
Yes, nominate Juanita Allen, the Home Community Advisory Committee.
Juanita Allen? Okay. Motion for Juanita Allen. Is that the advisory committee or the?
Adult home.
Adult
care.
Okay,
Home
adult home care. Okay. All in favor of Juanita Allen, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, are there any unfinished business?
Mr. Williams, this appointee on the Recreation Advisory Board, Did he represent the southern end of the
Yes,
county? Okay.
it'll be, Mr. Torres lives in Troutman area.
Okay.
We probably have some interested participants for that. We haven't had a Recreation Advisory Board meeting this month, so I hadn't had a chance to talk to anyone.
And I do think we need someone from the southern end of the county because we only have one or two other
Well, it's pretty
members
much
from
divided up, and we always try to replace somebody from the area they come from and not to make sure it stays that way.
Well, I think now maybe the south end only has 2 members, and Statesville maybe 6 or 8.
I'm not sure of the breakdown.
You think next meeting, Mr. Williams, you can have
Well,
us?
here it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's look at it.
Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 from Statesville, 1 from Union Grove. No, 7 from Statesville, 2 from Mooresville or South Ireland.
We used to, I didn't mean to distract everybody. We used to try to do it by quadrants when I was on there. Is that pretty much still the
That's
way you do
pretty
it?
much what to do. A lot of them have Statesville addresses, and they live in the county.
Okay.
But it's
Like
still,
Mike
but it's
Hines
still not equal.
Yeah. Mike Hines lives out in West Iredell, and but I'll make certain that
Should be someone from South
Yeah, it
Ireland.
should be. That's where we should
Okay.
look.
I'll make sure that this person at least comes from that area.
Okay.
We won't accept any applicants outside
You
that,
bring that to us next time.
hopefully.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other unfinished business? We're now at a public comment period. We have everyone in the audience wishing to speak. You have 3 minutes. If you come up and identify yourself and come to the podium, just give your name and what you're speaking about.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Eva Gunnings, and I'm here to, in 3 ways, present something to you, which is a national initiative, and it's titled the Million Father March. The Million Father March has grown out of recognition of the power of male involvement in the education of students. And the Million Father March is an opportunity for men to show their commitment to the educational lives of their children on the first day of school and throughout the school year. It has been shown by research that children whose fathers take active roles in their educational lives earn better grades, get better test scores, enjoy school more, are more likely to graduate from high school and attend college, and have fewer behavioral problems when fathers speak and listen to their children regarding their lives in school. We have planned through community involvement an event that is scheduled for this Saturday at the Broad Street Station Shopping Center in Statesville, beginning at 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Rugged Warehouse has partnered with those in the community that are behind the Million Father March. At this point, I know it is late for you to show your support of it, but we want to make you aware of the Iredell County initiative that is taking place. All over North Carolina, counties and cities are a part of this national event. So next year, you will have heard about it from this presentation tonight, and we would like for you to support us in that effort. And as we go out into the community in a peaceful manner, it is not a riot, nor it is a protest, but it is a way of encouraging men to take part. So we are soliciting fathers, grandfathers, mentors, all male mentors, clergy, to be a part of this. And if you can be with us on this Saturday, we would appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Connors. Do we have anyone else in the audience wishing to speak? You do have 3 minutes to do so. If we have no one else wishing to speak in this public comment period, we'll now move to our new business. Do we have any new business this time? Okay, County Manager's report.
Mr. Chair, just a couple of items I have. First of all, you should have a copy of the printed activity report in front of you. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is that several weeks ago, the county commissioners authorized us to notify the current managers of the Twin Oaks Golf Course of the termination of the agreement we have, and that we would go out to bid to solicit other agreements for the management of the golf course. There's been some that I've heard that were under the impression that the intention was to close the golf course at the end of December, but that's not the case. What we're doing, we're in the process now of soliciting bids and quotations from other management groups to manage the golf course. We have signed an agreement with Miller Management Associates, which is the firm that we hired to begin with to evaluate the feasibility and the possibilities of continued operation of the golf course. And Miller Management Associates has agreed to do the following: develop the criteria that meets the county approval to attract qualified candidates, implement promotion and submissions to adequately promote this opportunity to the golf industry, including the PGA of America, review all applications, resumes, and conduct phone and site interviews during the search process, submit 3 qualified candidates to Iredell County for consideration and negotiations for operation of the Twin Oaks Golf Club, and then update the county manager of the ongoing process and follow the prescribed timeline, which is as follows: by August the 25th, or as close to that as possible, notification of lease opportunity and bids to the public. September the 20th would be the last day for bid submission. From September the 21st to October the 15th would review the bids, interview the candidates, submission of 3 candidates for negotiation with Iredell County. And this says October the 20th, but I believe your meeting is October the 21st. That would be when the county would award the contracts. So I wanted to make you aware of that, and this would also be an opportunity for us to make the public aware that we are in the process of doing our due diligence to find qualified management company. And of course, the current management company may very well bid and have every right and reason to do so, but it will be open to others as well. And that's the report I wanted to give to you.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Mayor? Okay. Thank you. I will now make a motion that we go into closed session for economic development, 143.318-11, section A4, to discuss property.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to call for a public hearing on September 2nd, 2008 at 7 p.m. regarding an economic development incentive of $707,710 over a 6-year period for NGK Ceramics based on a $33,128,000 investment in Iredell County.
Thank you, Ms. Tice. Are there any questions regarding the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion to adjourn in order.
So moved.
To adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
So moved.